Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Flag. I'm your host, Lukas Wacker, and welcome to the Martinsville Weekend Recap episode here at the Green Flag today. Unfortunately, Kyle cannot join us today. School is very busy. We're in the final couple of weeks of our semester, so bear with me. I'm going to be the only one doing today's show, but we've got some action to talk about, let's say, at the Paperclip from this past weekend. So let's not waste any time, and let's look at the events from the NASCAR Cup Series and the Xfinity Series at Martinsville Speedway. We'll start off with the Cup Series, and as per usual, Mother Nature got in the way of this one, and I believe this was worth the wait. I'd be curious to know what you guys think, but let's look at what happened in this one, and we have our first repeat winner of 2021, guys. Martin Truex Jr. ends up in victory lane, claiming his third career grandfather clock, and he left it late, led only 20 laps in this one, but what a win for the 19 car after being in the top five consistently the entire day, and that's a great result for the 19 car. He passed his teammate Denny Hamlin late in the going. Hamlin made it tough on him, not going to lie, but it was very clean, hard racing, fair racing, and it was short track action basically at its best from start to finish, I would say, despite the rain delay, which lasted about 46 laps there. They got action underway. Supposed to be under the lights, obviously, on Saturday night, but 46 laps in the books. They came back on Sunday afternoon and finished the thing off, and it ended up kind of going into the evening/night in Martinsville, Virginia. But what a win there for Martin Truex Jr. Becomes the first multi-winner of this season, so that's a huge vote of confidence for that team, and that streak is finally broken. After 8 races, we have our first multi-winner, so congratulations to the 19 car. Was in the top 5 the entire day long. I swear he was third basically until the last couple of laps there when he got to the lead. So very impressive showing from that entire team. Just a great race all around. Props to NASCAR for trying their best to try and get the track going and ready for the guys to race. They got a little bit of action going on Saturday night, but we ended up finishing the thing at least on the weekend this time. That is the benefit of having a Saturday night race, and then you can have the Sunday as that little bit of buffer. But really great showing there from the 19 car. And then, it was your usual suspects in this one. It was the top tier teams, Joe Gibbs Racing, Team Penske, and Hendrick Motorsports, as we kind of predicted in our preview show last week, where our entire lineups in our fantasy lineups there between myself and Kyle, we had Joe Gibbs Racing, Team Penske, and Hendrick Motorsports, 2 drivers from each of those organizations to lock out our lineup. And I came away victorious, not going to brag, but we got our first 200-plus point week, got a lot of benefit from the bonus picks from myself. And luckily, Martin Truex Jr. did end up prevailing there for me there. Picked him as the winner. Kyle had the first pick. I wanted Chase Elliott. He came close. Was a runner-up finisher in this one, but got a boatload of bonus points from the Truex victory with Joe Gibbs Racing as the winning organization and Truex being that top Toyota finishing driver. So big weekend there. Kyle and I both scored plus 200, so make sure you go check out the final results on our Instagram feed. Those will be coming out relatively soon. Maybe they're already up when you are watching this episode, but let's kind of break this race down. We'll look at the top teams as per usual in our race recap episodes. And we obviously talked about Martin Truex Jr. a little bit there, but let's look at the next driver from that stable, Denny Hamlin. What a season this guy is off to. This is an incredible start. Very, you don't see these very often. They're very rare. He's got 7 top 5 finishes through the first 8 races of the season. Unprecedented, really. This is an historic streak of consistency for Denny Hamlin. He led the most laps in this one as well, 267 of the 500 laps. So very impressive showing from Hamlin. He's been consistent in the top 5 this entire season, but he hasn't quite had that race-winning speed. He's been in the top 5, 3rd to 5th, but there's always been a couple of guys that edge him out. But this weekend, Hamlin had that legit raw speed, and we saw that in both the night for the early portion and as well during the day. And he had a terrific short-run car, fell off on the long run a little bit there, and that's why we saw Truex capitalize, and that was one of the stronger suits of that 19 car. But you have to be very pleased if you're Denny Hamlin from this one. Maybe you're like, oh, it's just a missed opportunity. But at the end of the day, I would feel very, very solid for Denny Hamlin. Extends his lead atop of the point standings, was super consistent the entire day, earned 18 stage points as well, finishing second in both of those stages. So incredible consistency across the board from the 11 car. He was in the top two, basically. There, 1-2 with Ryan Blaney, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. But his incredible consistency continues, as I mentioned. And I mean, if you're a Denny Hamlin fan right now, you have got the confidence in the world right now. If he makes it to the championship 4, he just has to go and find that speed at Phoenix, which has been a hit or miss track here recently for him and for Joe Gibbs Racing, for that matter. But Truex winning there at Phoenix in the championship finale race earlier this season, and as well here in the penultimate race of the season. That is a big, big statement for Martin Truex Jr., and that should scare the rest of the competition, really. If he's in a must-win situation going into Martinsville, he goes out there and wins it, and maybe does what Chase Elliott did last year, where he wins that penultimate race and then wins the championship race, because that 19 car is on fire at the moment. But yeah, back to Denny Hamlin. Very impressive showing from him. There's no real worries in that camp right now. Chris Gaypark continues to give him a solid car week in and week out, and we'll see if that consistency can continue for the Joe Gibbs Racing driver going to his home track this upcoming weekend. Another short track at Richmond Raceway in Virginia, obviously. So back-to-back Virginia races for the Cup Series here. Let's look at the rest of JGR here. Those were the two standouts, and then I mean, they both finished in the top 10, the rest of these guys, Christopher Bell and Kyle Busch, that is. And Christopher Bell edging out Kyle Busch there in 7th, while Kyle finishes back in 10th. But Bell, a quiet yet solid day for the 20 car. I wouldn't say he was mesmerizing by any means, but Adam Stevens gave him a good piece, was in the back half of the top 10 for the majority of the day, led a couple of laps as well through pit strategy, so that worked out well for him. And he's just showing improvements this season, and I think that's the biggest thing if you're Christopher Bell and if you're a Christopher Bell fan. He's just been very steady. He's had some hit or miss races, but when they're good, they're a top 10 car on most occasions. And I mean, he's already got that win locked up, so he doesn't have to worry about the playoffs or anything like that. So if you're Christopher Bell, I think the round of 12 is probably the expectation for him this season, given the equipment that he's in and what his teammates are accomplishing right now, maybe more so Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. than Kyle Busch. But yeah, just a really solid day there for the 20 car, and showed improvement, like I said, from last season to this year, from that 95 to the 20, showing that Joe Gibbs Racing probably has made the right decision here with Christopher Bell, making that swap with Eric Jones there over the offseason. So curious to see how Bell can continue with this momentum and this consistency that he's really found this season. And then what a weird day for Kyle Busch. It was just up and down from start to finish. Really showed a little bit of signs of glimpses of speed in the night portion there for only 46 laps. So that's not saying too much. But when it hit the daytime, didn't really pass too many cars. Got up to about the top 5 at one point after a good restart, but other than that, you have to be disappointed if you're Kyle Busch yet again. He was up and down all day. Had an issue about the 2/3 mark in this race as well. Ended up spinning, but luckily stayed on the lead lap. And I mean, if he did go a lap down there and he didn't block the leaders by coming back down the track as they made their way back around during the caution, who knows where Kyle Busch would have ended up in this one. But luckily for him, he pulled off a veteran move there, a bit of a savvy move, if you want to call it that, and stayed on the lead lap. And then yet again, he was involved in another incident with over 100 laps to go there. Pulled a bit of a bold move there on Chris Buescher going into turn 1. You've seen these moves before, and it usually doesn't end up the best. So maybe you think a little bit of Kyle Busch in that incident, but going off of turn 2, Chris Buescher kind of chops him a little bit, gives him a little bit of the left steer coming out of the corner, and sends them both spinning in front of a lot of cars, causing the massive pileup. A red flag would ensue. Just a bad weekend once again for Kyle Busch. Ends up getting a top 10 miraculously. I don't know how he does it. He clawed back to 10th. Just finds a way to kind of get results here late in the going of these races. But I mean, you got to be a little bit worried if you're Kyle Busch a little bit now. You're 8 races into the season. It's by no means early now. We're starting to get past the quarter mark of the season. So I think you got to start putting a little bit of concern there in the 18 car. I don't know if he's going to get multiple wins this season. I'm hopeful that he just gets one, and I don't have to worry about him not making the playoffs this season. But yeah, just has to find that raw speed. His teammates clearly have it. They're just missing something in that 18 car, and hopefully they can find that sooner rather than later. So Overall, a solid day for Joe Gibbs Racing, the only organization to really have consistency across the board in terms of finishes, getting all 4 cars inside the top 10. And you expect that from Joe Gibbs Racing around here. We haven't really seen that 20 car be that good around here with Eric Jones in the past couple of seasons. But from the other 3 main contenders there that you usually suspect would be up there, that is what you can hope for. And that's a vote of confidence, a sign of confidence that's got to go into that camp for the penultimate race of the season, way later on, into the 35th race of the season. So we got a long way to go before we are back in Martinsville, Virginia for Joe Gibbs Racing. But congratulations for Martin Truex Jr. As Mike Joy said, Martin goes into Martinsville. It makes sense. And after not having short track wins for the majority of his career, he is one of the perennial short track racers right now on the calendar. They have found something, goes back to back here at Martinsville in this race specifically. Probably could have 3 in a row, if not for that flat tire in that penultimate race last season. Just really, really good showing from Truex and Hamlin. Consistency from Bell, that's what you want. And then Kyle Busch needs to step up his game a little bit in this one. But we'll move on to the next organization here in terms of finishing position, and that's Hendrick Motorsports. A very good day for them on the front side of things. 3 cars inside the top 5, one with Alex Bowman being the exception there. We'll talk about him in a little bit. I'll save that one. But for Chase Elliott, the highest finisher for HMS, very consistent all day long for the 9 car, and that is exactly what they needed. Man, this team, the defending series champion, shows like this is going to be his year and just hasn't quite found that stride yet. And I think if you're going to look for some place to start it, this is a heck of a good place to do it at with Martinsville. Obviously, the defending race winner of the last time we were here at Martinsville in the fall. But second place run past Denny Hamlin late in the going there. And just a really impressive showing from Chase Elliott. Was about 5th place or so for the majority of the race, 5th to 7th. And then just found that speed late in the going. Had a bit of a good longer run car, I would say. Just kind of hit on something with that last adjustment from Alan Gustafson. It seems. So very, very good showing for Chase Elliott. And it just proves that come playoff time, I think this 9 car is going to be one of the teams to beat yet again. Just lacking in that little bit of front run speed there. I think they'll figure that out over the course of the season. So just needed that finish there for Chase Elliott, and they finally get what they probably have been deserving for quite some time. So this is hopefully the start of something here for Chase Elliott. Richmond's been a hit or miss track for him as well. So we'll see what he can do from there. And then we go to Talladega in 2 weeks' time, where he's been, pretty good on the super speedway tracks as well in his career. So curious to see how that 9 car handles the adversity from here, but a solid finish here in 2nd place at Martinsville. William Byron, what a great run for him. Another impressive finish for the 24 car. Had a couple of moments where he was back in the field. He fell back in the field on restarts, and ends up with the top 5, finishing 4th in this one. Just a really hard fought day. And William Byron is impressing across his passing with flying colors this season, finishing top 10s left, right, and center, and gets the top 5 in this one. I was a little bit nervous on this one. I kept him in my lineup after Joey Logano had a little bit of a rough going there before the stage 2 break. And I kept William Byron in my lineup. Kyle, unfortunately, did not for his, and that was maybe one of the biggest things that ended up costing him fantasy victory this past weekend. William Byron just kind of methodically just worked his way up, and I was very, very impressed from Rudy Fugle, the 24 car. They were pretty confident over the radio for the majority of this thing. From every interview that we heard from the 24 car, they said, "Oh man, just wait for the nighttime." But they also adjusted for the daytime. And Rudy Fugle, being the clever crew chief that he is, he planned that this could have a possibility that there was going to be a day race here, and he was proven right and gets a 4th place run out of it all. So I'm thoroughly impressed. A victory in the bag, obviously, at Homestead earlier this season. I don't know. I mean, the expectations, I think they're going to keep on rising up here. A former Xfinity Series champion. He's starting to find his groove here, guys. So very impressed with William Byron so far. We got to take a sip of water here. All right. On to the next Hendrick Motorsports driver, Kyle Larson. Where did this guy come from? Where did this run come from for the 5 car? Something's clicking. Something is really gelling over there with that 5 team. And I mean, I had him as a stay away from. I should have known that the stay away froms would have done pretty decently here. Of course, Bell was in there as well, finishing 7th. So 2 of the guys I said stay away from, and a third actually, with Kevin Harvick a little bit later on, finishing inside the top 10. So as per usual, that kind of curse of me jinxing it a little bit there. And the guys that you stay away from have a good run. The numbers, they usually line up. This time, Kyle Larson just blew those numbers right out of the park. And this was one of the most encouraging performances of the 5 car, in my opinion, this season. It really shows that they are a legit championship threat, because this is a track that Kyle Larson has historically struggled at. He had an average finish of higher than 15th place here, or lower than 15th place here, prior to this race. And I mean, if he gets a top 5 run here at Martinsville, where he has not been good, to say the least, for Chip Ganassi Racing in his prior starts here, that has got to bode a lot of confidence into just Hendrick Motorsports as a whole, and specifically the number 5 team. And we kind of predicted it in our preseason episode here, where we picked the championship 4 and whatnot. I thought Larson would have a good season. I thought he'd be consistent. I didn't expect the race winning ability that he's had so far in the leading laps, and just basically being the class of the field in a lot of these races so far. But he's proven me wrong on that. I had him out in the round of 8, I believe, if I remember correctly, back to that season preview. And this was the racetrack that I looked at, and I was like, damn, I don't know if Larson could beat some of these guys, because the guys that I was looking around him were better here statistically. And if Larson puts in another shift like that in the fall, and he's not locked into that championship 4 race already, watch out, because he could actually go up there and get a solid finish that we were not expecting coming into this season from Kyle Larson here. And that's going to be massive for the 5 team if he can pull that off and make it to Phoenix this season. So very impressed. One of the most impressive runs of the day. Had to start back in the mid pack, so was had to charge his way up to the field, and that happened relatively quickly. It was a very interesting storyline as well, or not really storyline, but just thing to watch during the race. He would, let a guy pass, but then in a couple of laps, he would just pass the guy right back after maybe picking up some things, just watching his line or the guy in front of him's line or something like that. Just a very smart race from Kyle Larson is how I probably would describe it. So very good run for the 5 team. And once again, 3 cars inside the top 5 for Hendrick at a very dominated Gibbs and Penske track historically. So, and obviously Hendrick's had their fair share of success here as well, but this is massive for that entire HMS group. So the last, and certainly but not least, Alex Bowman. Oh man, this is a tough one, because this guy was in the top 10 for a large majority of the day, was right up there with his teammates, I would say, was faster than his teammates at some point in time, but ends up finishing 34th in this one, and he just cannot catch a break this season. If the playoffs were to start right now, he'd be out. He's outside the playoff cut line in 17th place right now, so just can't quite put a whole race together, and that's not necessarily Alex Bowman's fault. That's just circumstantial stuff, and just can't quite catch that break. And like I said, had a top 10 car the majority of the day, passed his teammates at one point, I believe, into the top 5, and was just caught up in that massive pile up there with that Kyle Busch incident with Chris Buescher, and he had nowhere to go. Destroyed the front end of that car, was just beat every which way it seemed, and that resulted in race-ending damage for that 48 car. So very unfortunate for Alex Bowman, a track that he's run pretty decent at in the past couple of seasons here as well. So just needs to just get a result, just finish a race in the top 10 where he's been running. That's the biggest thing, because he did get quite a few stage points in this one, ended up earning 10 points in the stages. So just goes to show you that was pretty solid running from Alex Bowman. If I have it correctly here, he had the 5th most stage points in this race as well. So, I mean, just unlucky for Bowman. You really feel for the guy, and I hope he gets it turned around sooner rather than later. And you imagine he will, after the performance that he showed last season, at the end of last season. And don't sleep on that 48 car. It's not cursed or anything with the Jimmy Johnson. I don't believe. Alex Bowman's got a lot of talent, and I'm sure he'll find his way probably into victory lane at some point in time this season. If not, he'll point his way in, just because consistency is key. And I think that 48 car definitely has it. So Yeah, well, a very good day for Hendrick Motorsports in terms of speed. Just that one missing result there from Alex Bowman. But if you want to look at it where he should have finished, probably if all four cars, similar to Joe Gibbs Racing, inside that top 10, that's really impressive showing for Hendrick Motorsports. So props to that entire organization for bringing a very competitive package at Martinsville. All right. Next one. We'll move on to the Fords here. We had Toyota, we had Chevrolet. Let's move on to the Fords. Just a weird day for Penske, I would say. Joey Logano for 2/3 of this race, like I mentioned with my fantasy lineup there for the first two stages, was a bit skeptical, got a couple of stage points in that first stage, but after that fell back, had a pit penalty as well for, I believe it was speeding on pit road, and just got kind of caught back in traffic on some restarts and whatnot. So we didn't really get to see the true speed of that 22 car, and I think he was struggling with the handle of that car for a large portion of the race. But then through clever pit strategy from Paul Wolfe and just through the abundance of cautions that we saw in that 2/3 mark after the third stage there, or entering that third stage there, he kind of got some track position back and he stayed there. It was very good for Joey Logano after having some question marks surrounding him in the early going of this one, but got back to a 6th place finish, the highest finishing Penske car, if you can believe it. I would have never thought that through the majority of this race that Logano would be the highest finishing Penske car. But once again, the week we do not pick him to be the top Ford finisher for fantasy, he does it. I don't know how. It's some sort of weird curse or jinx that we've got going on right now. But maybe just a safe bet to put Joey Logano as the top Ford finisher every single week, because he's just been very, very consistent this season, and specifically on the 750 horsepower package. And that's where you ultimately need to shine at the end of the day when it comes down to crunch time at the end of this season. Phoenix 750 horsepower package, Martinsville 750 horsepower package. These kinds of tracks. We haven't really seen that 1.5 mile speed from Joey Logano yet this season. So we'll see when we get back to that. I believe it's Kansas, the next one. So we'll see what he does there, but very, solid day for Joey Logano. Misses out on the top 5 there late in the going. Larson got past him, but 6th place for Joey Logano. That should just bode a little bit of confidence and inject that into the 22 car after obviously winning the Bristol Dirt 2 weeks prior. I'm pretty sure that 22 car is kind of rolling on a high and going into Richmond, where they've been pretty successful in the past as well. So we'll see if the 22 car can keep it rolling at Richmond Raceway this upcoming weekend. Next, Ryan Blaney. What could have been? That's ultimately the story of this one for the 12 car. He was the guy to beat on the long run, basically the entire race, but just didn't quite execute it all at the end. And that came down to his pit crew with a pit penalty there on that final pit stop. Crunch time, the crucial pit stop there. You go in, you think he got in contention. He was running second, I believe, at the time, and then ends up leaving with equipment from the pit box, goes to the tail end of the longest line. And that was all she wrote for the 12 car. And this one was very, very good. Led the second most laps in this one with 157. He had the best long run car. Just, you feel bad for Blaney because this has kind of been the story of his career. He obviously won a race at Atlanta, coming back late in the going, but when he's in these, winning contention moments and he's right up there at the front, he somehow finds something to go wrong, whether the car kind of falls off adjustment wise and some people just kind of pick it up as the race goes on, or there's some sort of penalty, bad restart, whatever, you name it, bad caution, luck as well. He just can't catch a break, and he should probably be into the maybe double digits right now in his Cup Series career. And right now I think he's only at 5 career wins in the Cup Series. So he's just missing out on these opportunities. And of course, he would have loved to have had his first grandfather clock in this one, finishing second both times in this race, in these races at Martinsville last season. Seemed like it could have been destined to happen yet again, and didn't quite have the shot at the victory at the end of it. When Truex was battling up there with Hamlin for the victory late, you wonder what could have been there for Ryan Blaney, like I said. So disappointing day if you're Ryan Blaney, because you didn't quite get that finish that you obviously deserve, because he had a top 3 car the entire race. And it was basically the same top 3 with Truex, Hamlin, and Blaney for most of this event. I would love to know the average running position in this one, because I swear it seemed like those were the only positions they ran in the entire race. But Ryan Blaney just continues to impress this season. That race winning speed, I predicted that he would kind of go up there this season and be that lead man at Team Penske. And I wouldn't necessarily am wrong so far. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily right either, but he has shown that improvement, and I'm expecting multiple wins for Ryan Blaney this season, as I'm sure most of you are, because this 12 car is legit. And when you have Todd Gordon atop of the pit box, a championship winning crew chief, there is no doubt that 12 car has got some speed in it. So we'll see what he can do at Richmond. Just what could have been weekend to sum it up there for the 12 car. And last but not least for Team Penske, Brad Keselowski. A weird day for the 2 car. Kyle had him in his fantasy lineup, and ultimately it didn't pay off there at the end. Ended up keeping him in his lineup. Garage Byron. Obviously, it's hindsight's 2020. You want to do the swap, but the 2 car was definitely the slowest, I would say, of the Team Penske cars when we saw them at their full force. When Logano finally got his track position back, he was definitely faster than Keselowski, and it just didn't quite have the speed that we usually are accustomed to seeing from Brad at this track. He was one of the big names involved in that wreck on the backstretch as well, with Kyle Busch and Alex Bowman and Buescher there. So just ended up finishing 33rd in this one. Couldn't quite finish the race after the terminal damage he suffered in that wreck. So you kind of throw this one out if you're Brad Keselowski. You obviously want to take notes from your teammate there and Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano in terms of how you want to improve the next time you come here. Jeremy Bullen's going to have to go a little bit to school, or go back to the notebook and see what he can do to try and fix that 2 car up. Because even earlier in the going when Logano was earlier on in the going when Logano was up at the front and a little bit there, Brad just didn't quite have that speed that we are usually accustomed to seeing from him. So bit of a head scratcher if you're the 2 car in this one. Had a couple of run-ins throughout the race, got beat up quite a bit. So I mean, it's been a while since we see Brad Keselowski get a little bit heated there. He's obviously matured quite a bit, but can't help but wonder if Brad's like, oh man, he got to start getting into groove here. His 2 Penske teammates have wins. He doesn't. Not to say that that's a bad thing at this point in the season. It's still a little bit earlier on, but Brad Keselowski finishing 33rd in this one. Disappointing result nonetheless at a track that he has done has historically done very well at. I believe maybe 2 races here, maybe 2, I think, at Martinsville in his career, specifically in the spring race as well. So hopefully they come back in the fall and they're in a playoff spot still, and they can go out there and prove us wrong. This result was just a one-off, and the 2 car can be right back up there where he ultimately should be, in that top 10, in that top 5, battling for victory. So that's really the top finishers in this one for the top teams, that is. And we expected that. The 3 main organizations, Stewart-Haas Racing still slacking a little bit there, not getting the results that we are accustomed to seeing, specifically Kevin Harvick, who I noted earlier on, finishing with a top 10. I don't know how he does it sometimes, honestly. It reminds me of a little bit of Kyle Busch here, with just being kind of mediocre for or even below average, whatever you want to kind of describe it as, for the majority of the race. And then he miraculously gets a top 5. I don't know, or top 10, excuse me. I don't know how he does it, but he is the closer for a reason, I guess. Finishing 9th in this one, the highest Stewart-Haas Racing finisher for that organization. So that's what you expect from Kevin Harvick, obviously, when you look at the drivers he's around at that team. I don't know what to say for Kevin Harvick right now. Definitely off of what we saw last season, the most wins with 9 in 2020. Hasn't gotten a victory through the first 8 races of this season. So I wouldn't push the panic button on the 4 car just yet. But I think on the rest of his teammates, you got to start pushing that panic button that the playoffs may be looking a little bit far-fetched, and you may need a win like Cole Custer did last season to try and break through into that top 16 come, I guess it is, no, it's not even Darlington. Yes, it is Darlington this season. They just don't have the throwback race. Apologies for that. But I wanted to touch on here, Tyler Reddick finishing with the top 10. I don't know where this came from for RCR on that number 8 car, but Austin Dillon showed some glimpses in there as well. RCR, we can kind of just bunch these 2 in there with the notable finishes here. We'll just get into that. Reddick in 8th, and then Austin Dillon in 14th. So 2 top 15 finishes there for RCR, and that consistently increasing trend here of getting those finishes is continuing this season. And we saw that last season, Dillon winning a race, obviously, at Texas. Reddick finishing 2nd in that race. Reddick finishing second at Homestead earlier this season. So and Reddick really needed this. He's struggled apart from that Homestead race this season, and he just really needed a top 10 run. I would have never really guessed that Martinsville would be the race that he does it at, but I ain't complaining. Tyler Reddick is one heck of a wheelman, and getting a top 10 here ahead of Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, some of these names here that have done fairly well here in the past is a good showing for that 8 car when we probably expected him to be 15th-ish or so, maybe even below that. And just kind of picked them off one at a time as that race went on there. So really great showing for Tyler Reddick. I'm sure if Kyle was here for Cush's 3s, he would probably be in that after this result here this weekend with an 8th place run. But I'm just guessing on that one. As I mentioned, Kevin Harvick there in 9th. Matt DiBenedetto, he had some issues early on, got the right front of that thing tore off. And we've seen that in the past year. Dale Earnhardt Jr. had a car very similar looking to what Matt DiBenedetto did. And it actually kind of it helps the car with having that air exposure to that right front tire and it not getting so worn out, and it keeps it cool. So maybe you put a little bit of that performance for that 21 car down to the, I guess, unfortunate, if you want to call it, damage that they had, or fortunate damage that they had from that earlier incident. But finishing 12th in this one, needs these consistent runs after a poor start to the season, has had some bad luck. Kyle and I exchanged some texts. We're like, man, he can't catch a break. But I think he'll take a 12th place finish, all things considered, after the up and down day that Wood Brothers 21 car experienced. As I mentioned, Chris Buescher was involved in that big wreck on the backstretch, recovers to a 13th place finish, and you got to feel good if you're Chris Buescher here. Won a stage at Homestead, has been consistently in the top 15 after a poor 2020. Roush Fenway is back to maybe what we expected from them last season. 2019, obviously Newman made the playoffs on points, and it's not out of the question that Chris Buescher or Ryan Newman here could potentially maybe squeak their way into the playoffs here on points if they continue these top 15 runs that they seem to be getting fairly consistently. So Chris Buescher, we expected him to run probably where he did in this one, and just way to get a finish there for the 17 car. As I mentioned, Austin Dillon got into the wall at one point in the race, and he kind of beat himself up over it, as we heard on Radioactive, if you've seen that. And yeah, just was in that top 10 run, top 10 at one point in time, and was actually one of the fastest cars on the racetrack. Just kind of fell back, I think, after he hit that wall. I may be wrong on that, but if you're Austin Dillon, I mean, you got to feel really great with what's going on there, that he's, as much as you want to argue maybe that he's got that seat for being the grandson of Richard Childress, he has been putting in some pretty consistent results here over the past 12 months or so. And he's actually showing that he's probably deserving of a ride such as that one. So solid day, solid top 15 for Austin Dillon. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in 15th place. Brad Daugherty still gets the edge over Michael Jordan, as the 2311 car has not finished higher than JTG Daugherty Racing this season. Bubba Wallace there in 16th. Led a couple of laps there for the 23 car off of some pit strategy. Looked pretty good up front. Obviously, they had the reverse kind of flip paint scheme this weekend, assuming that it was going to be under the lights. Unfortunately, didn't get to play with that marketing play, but really good result for both of those guys. I may have expected a little bit better from Bubba Wallace at the end of this thing, but it was getting a bit aggressive there in that midfield battle late in the going. Lots of 2-3 wide racing at points in time, at a point in time, and I think Bubba was just a little bit on the short end of the stick on those results, but solid runs for each of those guys there. And you have to feel good. Bubba Wallace consistently just trying to get finishes for that team, and that's what you expect. And I would love to see him running in the top 10 more consistently, but that is a big ask of a new team and a lot of moving parts over there right now. And further adding to it, they are looking to expand their race shop there, or building a new race shop to accommodate for a second and potentially third car down the line. So we'll see how quickly that storyline unfolds. But Bubba Wallace definitely getting a good run here at Martinsville, 16th place, kind of where they've been running the past couple of weeks there as well. So if you can finish where you should be running, that's not too bad. At the end of the day, of course, you want more. I think you'll take that 16th place run, and of course for Stenhouse there finishing 15th. So that's really the notable finishers from this one. Kurt Busch, I want to mention him quickly. He had one of the craziest races, really. He showed a lot of speed, spun, showed some speed, and then just got beat up, I feel like, a lot in this one. Ends up 2 laps down at the finish of this one, finishing 21st. You got to feel for the guy. Consistency was basically the name of his game, and the last couple of races have not quite gone his way. So the Busch brothers kind of just need to turn their seasons around a little bit here, and I expect Kurt Busch to find his form, and he's got the speed, I think. Just at Atlanta, you look at that incident there with Hamlin on the restart. Here at Martinsville, just getting mired back in traffic at some points, and guys not really giving two licks about it. So unfortunate there for Kurt Busch to not quite get that result, but at the end of the day, he'll find his form, I'm sure of it. And then you had obviously your poor finishers there from that wreck on the backstretch that affected a lot of cars. Ryan Preece was pretty decent, had a couple of issues throughout the day though, so unfortunate there for him. Daniel Suarez and William Byron have had their exchange of words. It's more from one side with Suarez after he was involved in that massive wreck on the backstretch as well. So yeah, just almost for some of these guys, and it's unfortunate for Suarez, and we'll see if maybe some tempers flare going to another short track here at Richmond. So that does it for really the Martinsville race recap on this one, solo edition for the Cup Series. Some great racing overall in this one. Congratulations once again to Martin Truex Jr. on the victory. 2 victories, and we'll see if he can go get a third there at Richmond, where he has done very well in the past as well. So I got to give a grade for this race as per usual. And this is an interesting one because I'm going to classify it as our first real short track of the season. You can look at the Bristol Dirt as a short track if you want. That's a dirt race to me. That's totally different than a short track. This is a legit on pavement / concrete in some parts of this track. And I thought it was a great race. I'm going to give it my highest score this season, I believe, is an 8.5. And I probably would say this matches that in terms of intensity level. So I'll give it an 8.5. It isn't quite better than those mile and a halves, I would say, so far, because those were actually really, really great racing, but I'll give this one an 8.5. Obviously the rain delay doesn't help with that score if it was kind of under the lights as we expected. I know that's not NASCAR's fault or anything like that. Once again, props to them for trying to even get the race going under the lights. They did their best to try and make it work with the circumstances, but yeah, I'll give it an 8.5 at the end of the day. Like I said, just getting that rhythm kind of mixed up there, having to wait an extra day. I'm going to knock that off, maybe about a half a point from the overall race. And I mean, there was some movement definitely at the top part. You had some you had some comers and goers for sure, but I'll still give it an 8.5 at the end of this one. Got to hydrate once again. All right. That does it for the NASCAR Cup Series recap. Let's quickly look at the Xfinity Series race that happened as well on Sunday. Of course, meant to be scheduled for Friday night. That unfortunately did not come to fruition. Of course, Mother Nature wanted to interfere with us once again this weekend. Of course, when NASCAR has the wet tire kind of tire test, they didn't really want it to be raining, but it doesn't rain for that. And then when we don't need it to rain the most, it does. So it just is the worst luck, I think, in professional sports, what NASCAR has with the weather. But when it's an outside sport like this, where tracks like this, you can't really run in the rain. Yeah, it is what it is. You can't really do anything to change it. But let's look at this Xfinity Series race. They got in 91 laps prior to the rain coming out on Friday night. So they got a bit of running in. That first stage they got through was delayed as well prior to with rain. So just hit with rain left, right, and center, it seemed, this weekend. But props to NASCAR for trying to get some laps in for the Xfinity Series as well. 91 laps in the books. And then at the end of it all, in only 13 starts, Josh Berry is an Xfinity Series winner. Props to him. He takes home the grandfather clock at Martinsville Speedway for Junior Motorsports. What an incredible run for the 8 car. Was consistently in that kind of hunt the entire day. Showed speed, was up there with his teammate Noah Gragson, and he just kind of he was in the best place at the right time, basically what it came down what it came down to for Josh Berry. I don't necessarily know if he had the fastest car at the end of the race. I just think he put himself in the right position, like I said. So what a great story for him. Obviously, Junior Motorsports has groomed this guy. He's been in their late model program for years and years and years. Dale Jr.'s been, obviously promoting him and trying to get him an Xfinity Series ride on a more consistent basis, even a full-time basis. And they haven't really found that sponsorship to really give him that ride. He's clearly talented enough. We've seen him on the 1.5 miles impress us at times, has had some bad luck. But when we finally get to the short track, his bread and butter, he's a short track ace, obviously, with a late model program. He goes out here and wins at Martinsville. Kyle gets the pick right. I kind of gave him a little bit of a push to pick that pick on that last episode, and I'm sure he's pretty happy that I did push him to get that one because he ends up being right. So we both end up getting a race pick right at the end of this one. So just overall, very impressive showing from Josh Berry. And you really hope that this guy can continue this momentum. He's got a couple more starts with Junior Motorsports before Sam Mayer is scheduled to take over that car at Pocono later this season when he turns 18 years of age. And I would love to see if Josh Berry can get a full-time ride here, maybe get a waiver from NASCAR. That's been obviously a discussion after this race. And we would love to see Josh Berry obviously try and get that waiver. And if Junior Motorsports can supply him a car, or if another team wants to step in or something like that, and he can get this waiver to maybe make the playoffs, we would love that for Josh Berry, because ultimately at 30 years of age, he's, not a rookie by any means in terms of his racing capabilities. He's very skilled. He's very knowledgeable. And I think his time is now. This is his time to shine. And it would be a shame to see him just only get part of a season here when there's definitely potential for him to do maybe something in the playoffs later on this season. So hoping for Josh Berry to get something. Obviously, Marcus Lemonis has been kind of like the saving grace this season, giving guys sponsorship left, right, and center with Camping World. And I would love to see him kind of get a sponsorship here for Talladega if they can make that work. And he's scheduled to be in that Dash for Cash race as well if he can get a ride for that one. He previously led 200 laps around Martinsville as well in the past in the late model car in 2019. So this should come as no surprise, really, that he did this well in this one. Just overall, you have to feel so great. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was obviously ecstatic in his post-race media conferences that Berry kind of pulled this off, led 95 laps on the race as well. I believe that is the most, if I'm looking at this correctly. Yeah, led the most laps in this one as well. So, I mean, what a great showing from Josh Berry. Came on late, past Ty Gibbs with around 30 laps to go and just held him off from there. And I hope he gets more of an opportunity here, as I'm sure many of you do as well, if Berry can pull this off and get some sponsorship here and run. Maybe the full season is quite a bit to ask, but more races than what he has scheduled currently. So Noah Gragson, as well as teammate, comes home in second place in this one. Very solid day if you're Noah Gragson for points-wise, getting 54 points on the day, 19 stage points in this one, finishing second. So wins a stage in that first one, and then finishing second in that second stage to Daniel Hemrick. So just they needed that. They've been snake bitten basically this entire year. They've had some dust ups, of course, but that's a huge run for Noah Gragson. So he gets the $100,000 bonus in this race, and he's going to get the eligibility to go for another $100,000 that he already donated to his team, of course, during these COVID times and these unusual times. It's a class act from Gragson to give it back to the team that obviously worked so hard to get him the results on the track. So to join Berry and Gragson there for the Dash for Cash at Talladega, because remember, the Xfinity Series is off at Richmond. So Hemrick and Brandon Jones will have the eligibility at Talladega in 2 weeks' time. So quite the matchup there. 2 JGR cars, 2 Junior Motorsports cars. We'll see who comes out on top at the 2.5-mile high bank there in Alabama. So yeah, that's kind of the race winner there for Josh Berry. A bit of a scuffle in the garage area after this race as well between Greg Galding and Joe Graf Jr. I'm not entirely sure what sparked all of that. Maybe they had some incident on the track that I'm unaware of. Maybe you guys know, let us know. But I'm unaware of it. But, fisticuffs, short track racing, it just provides tempers usually. And, we saw it at Atlanta, 1.5 mile track. I'm not surprised that we saw it here at the Paperclip, a 0.5 mile track. So, yeah, the Xfinity Series had quite a few interesting names to get some stage points here. So I just wanted to point that out because I thought that was definitely an interesting one. I mentioned Gragson getting 19, the most there by far, 9 more points than his next competitor, with Daniel Hemrick getting 10 points And joining him for joint second in this one, Jeremy Clements. Did you guess that? I didn't know that before I looked at this and looked at the stats prior to the show. 10 stage points for Jeremy Clements, and he gets a 14th place to boot. So really great showing for Jeremy Clements, and we've seen that this season basically every single race. And it's great to see that it's translating from track to track, different types of tracks, different surfaces as well. Just awesome to see for that 51 car after having a struggling time last season. They really needed a good bounce back year in 2021, and they are certainly getting that on the track. And then Jeb Burton there with the 4th most points, tied with Justin Haley with 8. Michael Annett with 7 stage points up there. JJ Yeley with 6. Mike Snyder in with 5th with 5 points. Brandon Brown with 6 as well. Tommy Joe Martins with 5 stage points, pulled off a bit of a pit strategy there, had some unfortunate issues. I think he had a tire go down at one point in time. He got roughed up a bit when he stayed out for the lead there and fell all the way back. Stephen Parsons with 4 stage points. Jeffrey Earnhardt with 2, along with George Gorham Jr. getting 2. And Bailey Curry gets 1. And I was stunned when I saw this. Josh Berry, who led the most laps in this race, was the winner, only had 1 stage point in this one, finishing 10th. I believe it was in that second stage. Yes, in the second stage. So weird points tally for Josh Berry. He only had 41 points with the victory, obviously with the 1 and 40 for the victory. So weird in terms of the points there, but nonetheless, I'm sure he'll take the grandfather clock and drive all the way home. I'm sure it was quite the celebration for that entire family and team, as they definitely should be doing. So notable finishes here to wrap up today's episode. Noah Gragson in second, as I mentioned. Daniel Hemrick in third. I think he burned his stuff up a little bit there at the end. Didn't quite have enough to get past Gragson and go up to Berry, but he was absolutely flying in this one late in the going with the damage and all. The splitter bent up on that thing. You would think maybe a little bit of aerodynamic damage would be done to that vehicle, but it seemed like it maybe was helping it. Surprisingly, I mean, short track damage really doesn't hurt you much at the end of the day with aerodynamics. But finishing third for Daniel Hemrick, once again, just getting a stage win, just cannot get into victory lane, the big one. And we'll see if he can eventually do that this season. And you expect that from that 18 car. With the caliber of ride that he's in. Shout out to Ty Gibbs once again, a first, a second, and a 4th place finish in his 3 career Xfinity Series starts. This kid is just unbelievable right now in that 54 car. We would have loved to have seen him in a sponsored car, more sponsored car than a black, basically, base car there with little sponsorship. So hopefully Ty Gibbs can find some funding because he's getting the results. So if you want some TV time, put some sponsors on this man's car, because I mean, not even man, he's basically a kid. He's younger than I am, so I can't really call him that. But Ty Gibbs, top 5. I don't know what the average finish of that, maybe second, 2.25 maybe, if that's correct. I don't know my maths right now. I can't do it off the top of my head, but his average finish in his first 3 races in Xfinity Series career is very, very impressive. So looking forward to seeing Ty Gibbs continue his march here through the ranks, and we'll probably see him full-time in an Xfinity Series car next season because he's already proved he's capable on some pretty difficult tracks this season. His teammate Brandon Jones finally gets a result here, similar to what Alex Bowman needs to do in the Cup Series. Brandon Jones actually did that this weekend and got a top 5 finish. Was very sporty through this one as well. Was leading the race at one point in time. Kind of just fell back a little bit there, but stayed in the top 5. So impressive for the 19. Harrison Burton as well, the other JGR car in this one, finishing 7th. Obviously won this race last time we were here. So it's just a bit of a weird day for Harrison Burton. I believe he started on pole, if I'm not mistaken, and just didn't quite have that speed that some of these other guys did. So I don't even think he earned a stage point. He didn't earn any stage points, I don't believe, unless I'm wrong. No stage points for Harrison Burton in this one. So actually pretty disappointing day when you want to look at it overall points wise. So they'll need to get a little bit back on track here for that 20 car, and I'm sure they will. Jason Ratcliffe will get that team turned around relatively quickly. Michael Annett in 10th. Shout out to him. He spun at one point in this one, recovers to get a top 10. Impressive showing for him when you look at what his Junior Motorsports teammates did. I believe, all of them finished inside the top 10 in this one. So very good showing for them. Brett Moffitt finishing 12th in the O2 car for our Motorsports. This guy just continues to chip him, pick him up and put him down. I'm trying to get the analogies here, folks. Brett Moffitt finishing 12th there. Obviously, Kyle and I have had this banter back and forth with he should have been running the Xfinity Series points from my side of things. Kyle's happy with him running full-time points in the Truck Series. I think Brett Moffitt's results have shown that he is definitely worthy of being in a maybe even higher class Xfinity Series ride when you look at the equipment that he's in right now. That's pretty good for Brett Moffitt in 12th. AJ Allmendinger, my pick to win this race coming into this weekend. How did he get the top 15 run out of this? The car was basically broken. He didn't really have a right front on that thing. It seemed to, after a restart there in the nighttime, he just went backwards on the restart, and it was clearly dipping on the right-hand side of that machine. So they tried to get some adjustments. They never really fixed the problem, unfortunately. And he just kind of had to make do with what he had. Gets a top 15. You wonder what could have been for really AJ Allmendinger this weekend, a track he's done very well in his career at, and just a missed opportunity. I'm looking forward to seeing him back in the fall here at Martinsville and try and really, that's just the one disadvantage of having no practice at qualifying. You don't really get to iron out these issues or get to look at these kind of fundamental things that would not really break if you had those extra laps or something on the track. But it is what it is in these COVID times. So AJ Allmendinger gets 13th, and of course Jeremy Clements in 14th. And I believe that will do it for the notable finishers for today's episode. Just a really fun weekend overall at Martinsville. I'm sure Kyle would agree. And just really looking forward to continuing on with the show. Kyle will be back in the next one, I'm sure, to get you set up for the upcoming race weekend, which is going to be a hectic one. We got the three main motorsports here coming back in action. IndyCar with its season opener at Barber Motorsports Park. And then, of course, we've got Formula One back in action at Imola. And, of course, we have the Truck Series action for NASCAR and the Cup Series at Richmond Raceway. So make sure you stay tuned here at the Green Flag. We've got you covered from the start of the Green Flag to the drop of the checkered flag and everything in motorsports. So really happy to have just gotten this episode done. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, my first solo effort on this one as well. So felt good to just kind of chat with you guys, and hopefully you found this somewhat entertaining or informative after a very good weekend of racing as well at Martinsville Speedway. But make sure to follow us on Instagram at The Green Flag Pod, as well as Twitter at The Green Flag Pod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. We would really appreciate it. Of course, as per usual, all of the links of these social channels will be in the description of the YouTube video. But for this episode, I've been Lukas Wacker, and we will talk to you on the next one to get you set up for next weekend's racing coverage.